What's up, guys? WhoNeedsMeta here. A few weeks ago, Collector Store held a Win-A-Caius tournament, and I have the top 8 deck list. I wanted to do this for a little while ago, but I wanted to get a new mic. So this is kind of just a mic test here. A friend of mine is letting me borrow a new microphone. Hopefully it sounds a little bit better than some of the other videos. And I've been sick all week, so I couldn't really, I don't want you to, I mean, you still probably hear it a little bit. But getting right into the list, first place was won by Machina Gadgets. First thing I noticed was that there's only 6 gadgets and not 9 in the list. It makes sense if you don't want to play the Solidarity build and you want to play the extra monsters. The one Cyber Dragon, Fossil Dyna, Caius Drag, and Gores. Gores can, obviously with Solidarity, conflicts with both being a continuous and just turning off the Solidarity. The one of Shield Crush is pretty interesting to see. You see the 3 smashing, which is pretty standard, but the 1 Shield Crush. Surprised it's not Nobleman, but I guess this works with face-up monsters as well. So let's say you run into a Spy, you could summon a Gadget, Poke, and then they summon Descendant, and you could just Shield Crush the Spy, and that Descendant's there. Doesn't have anything to tribute, so that's something to look at. And then I like the Karma Cut in the side. I think this card might be... see a little bit more play. I don't know. I think it's a cool card. You swap the Raigeki break with the Karma Cut. You get your 1 discard trap for your 1 discard. Discard traps in 6 gadget builds are pretty iffy. They get rid of your ability to pitch double gadget for Fortress late game. But, you know, it obviously worked out for him. So, second place, we have Diva Hero. I really actually like the Spy package in this. This does wall things like Black Wings and forces them to use Clute to get over them, which is really cool. I also am a fan of 1 Gold Sark. Opening double Gold Sark can really hinder you. It could really slow you down because you're essentially playing with 4 cards for 2 turns, and then against faster decks, you sometimes just honestly can't come back from that. He's also playing 2 Infernal Prodigy. That does allow you to Colossal Arm a lot easier, and a lot of people don't see Colossal Arm coming outside of when they're playing against Fish. And then the blank cards here are just Goyo and Magical Android, the extra X in alphabetical order. A little bit of deductive reasoning. There's a Goyo and Android. On to the top 4 list, we actually have my buddy Kyle playing Tomato Value. So if you immediately you'll notice there is absolutely no Raikos. No hamsters, none of that. There's no milling whatsoever. This does remove your ability to play Chaos Sorcerer, but a lot of builds aren't on Sork anyways. He's opted to play Mystic Tomato. There is 1 Ick attack, but Tomato can get you into your Vayu, which you can immediately use to turn on Icarus attack. So the 1 of Ick attack is pretty cool. Again, when they try and like Compulse or Bottomless or something, your Synchro play, your Vayu play, you could just chain it so your guy goes to your graveyard. I'm not really sure what the Necro Valley for in the side is, which is pretty interesting. He's also playing Elfin instead of 3 Roko. I personally am a 3 Roko guy. I don't like Elfin. This card does nothing on its own. Roko actually does something, especially in like the Blackwing or Vayu Mirror. These cards, it's just better. It's just a better card in my opinion. I think you should go 3 Roko. This does let you get to Armor Master faster, but he's only on the 2 Arm Wing rather than the 3. So you'd have to cut something, presumably probably Urakisis, to get the 3rd Armed Wing in there. And I had a version of this with no milling, but instead of like Tomato and stuff like that, I was playing DD Warrior Lady, because when you don't have Caius, which this list is on 3, or Dark Armed, you could sometimes struggle. Like if your opponent sacks for Caius, you have to work hard to get over to a 24. Armed Wing can't do it. You have to get to Armor Master or Gale or something like that. So, yeah, having that 2400 threshold can kind of be tough for this version of the deck. So yeah, that's another reason why Warrior Lady, and that's why Raikos and things like that typically work in the deck. Next up, we have top 4 Blackwing. If some of you guys might know Chris, he got 2nd place at YCS Kansas City all the way back in 2011. That was the Photon Shockwave release event where people were just like buying boxes like crazy, trying like pull rabbits and things like that, and try and pull. I think Zenmains was in that set as well. The only thing that sticks out to me in this list here is the 2 Bora over 3. I could be swayed on 2 Bora. I don't really play Blackwing. It's one of the few decks of the format I don't own, but I am familiar with the deck. I could see 2 Bora and wanting to play other cards like the double Dust Tornado in the main deck. The Magic Cylinder in this side is actually pretty funny. And then there is a Gores in this version. I actually kind of like this. The logic behind it is, for at least for this list, if you have Whirlwind, which is stopping you from Gores, you have monsters. Gores is dead when you have Whirlwind. The only time that this can really conflict is if you get in a really, really late grind game. Your Gores typically isn't going to resolve. Outside of, like, if you have Black Whirlwind up for like 2 to 3 turns, I am not going to be using my Raikos, my MSTs, things like that on your Black Whirlwind, because the card's already done its job. It's already gained its value for you. And again, there are times where, like, okay, we can reset the game state with like a Lightning Vortex or some kind of big bomber, or like a Black Rose in that second Black Whirlwind where we're going to draw a Roka and we're going to start the cycle, or we're going to start a Shura. But typically speaking, in like 90% of games, once Whirlwind has done its thing, it's done its thing. So it's smart to just kind of leave it there. So Gores would be dead in that instance. But there are most times where that isn't necessarily the case, and that's where that interaction comes into play. So this deck was the talk of the event. 6 Samurai. This is actually first after Swiss. There were no undefeateds after Swiss. So this is X1. This is the top X1 deck. The main deck D-Fissures definitely put in a lot of work. We have the third one in the sideboard, but the main deck D-Fissure puts in work in a lot of matches, especially if you can open it. The deck can struggle with where you just open with a bunch of monsters. Like, I probably wouldn't play 3 Iroh, 3 Aichi, maybe even not 3 Spirit. I see a lot of lists play 3 Spirit. You could play other monsters. I think Zanji's pretty good. Grandmaster is really what makes the deck work, just because of like how it works with your opponent's oppressions. It doesn't work with your own. It's opponent's card effect. I'd like to see, personally, Oppression played in this list somewhere. I really like that card. I think that card is really good in this deck as like a one-off, and then they side the other one. Just because you can set up a pretty big board and just kind of shut everything down. You could also play Solidarity instead of playing Gale to make everything just a monster. You do have the draw power and then the search power, the amount of plays where you just, normal summon, special summon, and then you're off to the races with your gateway. I'd also like to see Torrential in the main board. That's what I would replace the main deck pulling the rugs. I personally wouldn't main deck the pulling the rugs. I'd probably side deck them. Maybe not side deck the Book of Moons, although you do need outs to things like Christia. You do have 3D Prisons of Mirror Force for when it already hits the board, and the double Starlight is important because, again, you have D-Fissure, Gateway, United, which if you're not able to pop it, is going to stay, and you want to be able to protect everything from Heavy Storm and Black Rose Dragon. Monster effects are a big problem for the deck, even like in the Shien era, which is why you see the triple Fiendish Chain. And you'll see a lot of later builds playing cards like Effect Veiler and Fiendish Chain when other decks would not, just because the deck is so adverse to monster effects. The next top 8 list we're going to look at is Black Wings. Another Blackwing list. This one is a little bit more standard. It's interesting to see the Card Trooper and the Dark Illusion. These are 2 pretty interesting techs. The deck does kind of crumble to Caius historically, where you can't use your clues, so you need to be able to protect your guy, and Dark Illusion kind of does that. It stops your D-Prison, the discard traps, your Brain Con, your Caius. So I think the card is actually pretty cool. It's a pretty neat inclusion. If you're a Blackwing player, maybe give it a try. This one, again, is on the 3 board rather than 2. It seems that 2 and 3 is just player preference at this point. It used to be 3 was like super standard, but we're seeing 2 pop up more and more. And then the 3 mask in the side, it looks like, so against frogs, because they're typically only going to have 1 card most of the time, you should bring back Treeborn, sack it for a Monarch, or don't bring back Treeborn and activate like Miracle Fusion or something like that. A lot of builds won't be playing putting 2 monsters on the board, so you just take out your Ick attacks and you put in your masks. Makes sense to me. Next up is Gladiator Beast. This was our buddy Noah. Noah works at Yeti Gaming here in St. Louis. The list is kind of standard. 42 cards is pretty interesting. I see 2 War Chariot just more and more. The 3 Proving Ground helps you get to your monsters while still playing a more robust trap lineup. I mean, he's on so many trap cards here. I think it's what 19 looks like. It's a lot of trap cards. I also have seen Trap Sun in the main more and more. I really like Trap Sun. I think this card, I've been wanting to test it out in like the zombie version of Welladad, because that deck can OTK so easily, and to just be able to like activate trap stun during your setup phase where you're going for something like a Greffer is pretty cool. So you just, you know, go for your Greffer, your Armageddon play, set up everything, set your trap stun, and then during your turn flip it and then do your OTK. With here, obviously you need to be able to protect your ready Ari from bottomless, or sorry, your best Ari from bottomless. The double ready Ari is actually pretty cool. There are a lot of frog players in our area, so the double ready Ari is pretty good. There are also a fair amount of Amaryllis players. With that card being so expensive, you'd be surprised. But yeah, the ready Aris come in really well with Amaryllis and with frogs. And then the last top 8 list is the Des Frog build. This is actually one of the only matches. It was him and Noah playing Gladiator Beast. Kind of screwed everybody up going into time because game 1 he was able to activate 3 Moray of Greed and 3 Pot of Avarice just because of the amount of substitute shenaniganery you can do. I mean, you have your dandelions that just give you fodder to do that. This is kind of, I'm not sure if it's like the UK or the Dream Frog, but it's this plus the Caiuses and the one of Light and Darkness Dragon. This is just kind of your tribute thing to give you something to do when you're not able to do frog things, where if you're only able to get like a Treeborn Frog into your graveyard, you could bounce swap, and then if you have a water monster, you could pitch, and then you could sack for Lad, or you could just simply do the Treeborn Caius nom nom play. Pretty standard. The utility frogs of Unifrog and Flip Flop Frog are included, which is pretty cool. That's standard for this sort of thing with the triple Fishborg builds. You're just kind of maxing out on all your frogs along with your 3 Des Frogs. I also think it's really cool the one of Consecrated Light that can be summoned off 1-for-1. He did do that. I did watch that happen. If you're wondering, I was the judge at the event. I was not playing. I was the one judge. So I was able to watch a lot of the games and see what was going on. But the 1-for-1 summon Consecrated against Vayu is pretty good. And you play the 2 Gaia Knights here in the extra deck. This is, so if you have Fishborg and your 3 Des Frogs here, where you're able to summon all your Des Frogs and do your shenanigans. This is 26, 26, 28, which is 8,000. Typically, you would do that off of like an Inferno Reckless Summon play. There is a build that plays Inferno Reckless Summon when you get the Dupe Frog, which is treated as Des Frog, which you summon your 3 guys, you activate Des Croaking, and then so you blow up everything that they summoned off of the Inferno Reckless Summon, and then you just use your Fishborg for your 26, 26, 28, and you just kill them. This is obviously not that. This is much more consistent and not going for some gimmicky OTK. But yeah, that was the top 8 deck lists from this event. It was pretty cool. Had a lot of fun judging, a lot of cool, fun questions, getting to meet a lot of cool people. But let me know what you guys think of the list, which one's your favorite, and thanks for watching, guys.